Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am here with two amazing human beings, Charles Williams and Hedrick Nichols, and we have some really exciting stuff to share with you. We have been blessed to be doing some work together lately that just has led us to some really needs that we have decided to come together and share some exciting things with you. So before we jump into that, though, today, I want to give Charles and Hedrick just a minute to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about who they are. And then we'll be ready to get on with the business of today, taking equity issues off the back burner. So Charles, why don't you tell everyone about you?
Sure, Dawn, are you going to introduce yourself?
Oh, I will in just a minute.
Okay.
I'm going to let you go first, and then I'll get to me afterwards. Thank you, Charles.
No problem. So good morning, everyone. My name is Charles Williams, the founder of CW Consulting. And so through that, I've done a lot of work of podcasting. We got the Counter Narrative podcast. I'm the co-host of Inside the Principal's Office. So this is actually happening in between. We do those on the first and third Saturdays. And I'm also a principal in Chicago, a K-8 principal. But the biggest thing that I like to say is that I'm an equity advocate. So I get to work for the city of Chicago, doing equity work there, as well as for the equity office in CPS, the Chicago Public Schools. And so through all of that, it has brought me with some amazing educators like the two of you. And as you said, we've been able to, and we've been honored and blessed to be able to come together and do some work. And we're like, hey, wait a minute, there's something here that's much bigger than the three of us. And that is why we're here today. So I'm excited to have this conversation with the two of you and to share out to anybody who is watching and listening right now what our thoughts are for bringing us all together. So Hedrick, I will turn it over to you.
You know what? I absolutely am like floored because I have this thing in my car when I listen to your podcast. I like the sound of your voice. You know, in my former life, I was a musician, so I get this James Earl Jones vibe. And I was like, I don't know if I heard the words you said, but they sounded really nice. So I hope everybody else did a better job. I'm Hedrick Nichols, an author, an educator, and an advocate for equitable spaces on campuses and classrooms. Small Bites is a consultancy that helps districts and schools to further those kinds of initiatives. And I also host a podcast by the same name where you can come and get strategies to do those kinds of things in your classroom if you're a teacher, and on your campus if you are an administrator. I'm really excited about being able to be a part of just a group of educators. We actually know each other for a while from Twitter and from different things, but we were on a panel together and just see such a need for equity initiatives being taken off the back burner. When George Floyd died, everybody was up in arms and, oh my God, I had a friend yesterday say, that was the worst thing that happened ever. And I thought, wow, this is why we need, she didn't know that things like that happen often. She didn't know that these are things that we've experienced in marginalized communities. She didn't know that Indigenous women go missing at an alarming rate. They're just things that she didn't know. And so those are the kinds of things that we want to help our educators to deal with on their campuses and help them to connect them to strategic priorities like student outcomes. So that's why we're here. Glad to be here with you too.
Awesome. Yay, thank you. I'm super, super excited again to share the space with you. I am Dawn Harris. I am first and foremost an educator of high school children, which I enjoy doing every day, and a huge advocate of anti-racist teaching and learning. So anti-racism education is the core of all I do. I love bringing students to experiences in the classroom that just make them more empathetic and aware of the things that are going on around them, in hopes that they are working towards becoming the kind of individuals that break down systemic structures that keep many of our students back every day, and society at large, really. I'm a former professor of teacher education. I am an author of Plan Like a Pirate, in which I have embedded many of the components of anti-racist teaching and learning so that other educators can learn to do that in their classrooms as well. And so through that work online that I have been able to engage in with Hedrick and Charles and many others, I find myself here with these amazing folks today, and we have really put together some amazing things for you today to share with you to help you become more engaged again at taking equity off the back burner and becoming advocates for children and other educators whom you work alongside every single day. And so, we had the pleasure of coming together on a panel last week. And there were some other amazing folks on there, Rabia Kokar and Vicky Olatundan, who they were just amazing and sharing a lot of really helpful information to the educators and leaders who were in that group. And, one of the things that really resonated with me from that conversation that Vicky Olatundan shared with us was the fact that, equity work, anti-racist work is messy work. It is messy. When you get into it, you're going to discover a lot about yourself, a lot about other people. And that can be challenging sometimes to have the courage to kind of dig in and do that work that we know is going to at times be painful. It's going to be difficult. How do we address the needs of the learners that are in front of us every day without further traumatizing them after some of the things that they have experienced already. But some of the other things that were shared during that panel that were pretty awesome too were really something Hedrick spoke to specifically was the kind of cognitive science and the neuroscience behind racism. Hedrick, would you like to talk a little bit about that and how our learners are impacted by the things that go on in the classroom every day and what we can do to kind of support that?
Absolutely. Because I am a person of color, a Black person, particularly, people often think that what I talk about is Black and white racism. And when we talk about anti-racism, people see Black and white very often. And what we don't realize is I always prefer the term anti-bias because we don't realize that we have biases. We other people all the time. We other people in our families, we other people in our communities. And if we can get to that, we can change the way we view people of other races and identities. And we don't realize the cognitive science is that kernel that it's like the light switch. If you flip that switch, then you will relate to your, I like that word, relate to your Black students, your Hispanic students, your indigenous populations, every marginalized identity a lot differently. And so the cognitive science says that bias is really natural. It's not bias, bad people. Good people are not biased and bad people are biased. Everybody sorts people. As an infant, you sort people into my mama and all the rest of you strangers don't touch me. And you sort people in finding your blind spots. It's my favorite chart. It's two-legged creature, a big old bear, and a toddler. And I use silhouettes. And when I use them in consulting, everybody knows it's a toddler. They can even guess the approximate age. And it's just a shadow figure because our brain is designed to not have us think 2 legs, feet, tummy, hair, hands, not paws. These are millions of minute decisions that we have to make every day. And so the brain sorts things into little drawers. And it's when it's on racist mode, then it sorts things into Black man hoodie danger. And I'm looking at, yeah. That's and the friend I was talking to last night said, if I was walking down the street and I saw a Black man in a hoodie, I would feel like I was in danger. And we talk about those kinds of things all the time, but we don't think, oh, I can do something about it. But we can. We can make sure that we know some of one of over 180 cognitive biases that they are and begin to say, oh, you're right, I do that. Oh my God, I do that. Let me see how I can not other these people in a way that disenfranchises them or disadvantages them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Wow. That's a lot, Hedrick. It is a lot. Thank you for that. And, we do have to really be aware every day of all those little decisions and things that we make, in the classroom that just impact our kids, that impact really their perception of us, teaching them in the classroom. We have to think about who we are as the identity in front of the classroom. Are we, a Black teacher teaching white kids, white teacher teaching white kids? I mean, there is just a lot going on. That dynamic is so very complex. And Charles, you share a lot about the framework that you utilize with equity and ensuring that we have equitable structures at place in school. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, I can run through it really quick. And before I do, I just want to say, Hedrick, I love the idea that you said, like, anti-bias. Yes. I really think a lot of times when we talk about equity, right, that it immediately becomes about race. And equity is so much bigger than race. Like, that is a huge issue that we have to address. But I think you're absolutely right. That bias is the foundation of racism, ableism, sexism, all of these different aspects when we talk about equity. And so like, if we can target that. So I love that idea. So I'm just so you know, I will be borrowing that phrase for a while.
Honestly, it helps people because I realize that as anti-racist equity, anti-racist advocates, I realize that the word racism just, yeah, no, I'm not a racist. I'm not a bad
Our conversations are done.
Our conversations are done. Really, you know, the la 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 la. That's all they hear. And when I say bias is natural, they at least can. Oh, okay, maybe I can listen. Mm-hmm. And that's the other, and it's sad that it has to be that way, you know, but whatever, by any means necessary, I want the audiences that need to hear my message the most to be able to hear the message.
Amen.
Absolutely. That's how we get in. So through my work with Chicago Public Schools, we're part of this equity teamwork, and we built a framework in order to address equity. And I've been blessed. In fact, earlier this week, I just found out that I get to lead a PLC for Chicago leaders on how to take the framework, which is kind of a conceptual idea, right, and apply it to our buildings and to our schools. And so it's really exciting to be able to take that from like paper to actually doing the work. And I've been doing that within our own building. But there's essentially 4 domains. The first one, and I think is probably the most powerful, and really what we're starting to talk about here is liberatory thinking. Right, it's reimagining and addressing those internal biases, right, on how we perceive other people, and then how that impacts the relationships that we have with those other people. So there's a whole domain focusing on how we shift those attitudes and those mindsets and those thoughts. There is inclusive partnerships. We have a really bad habit of figuring out, and I don't want to just say we, but as a whole, right? We have a really bad habit of saying, let's help these people out, but we're not going to talk to them. We're not going to ask them. We're not going to include them in that decision-making process, but I'm going to figure out how I'm going to help you and make your life better. And it's like, what? And so inclusive partnerships talks about how do we make sure that those people are not just seen, that they're not just in the room, that they're not just at the table, but they have a voice that's actually being heard and considered as part of the decision-making process, right? We have a lot of those phrases, like make sure they're in the room. No, make sure that they're at the table. Make sure they have a voice. No, make sure that they're part of that decision-making. So that's the inclusive partnerships. There's a resource equity, something that we talk a lot about. I was just talking to somebody and they had no idea, like that our schools are paid off property taxes. And so I had a whole conversation around that and what that means depending on where you live. And they're like, wait, what? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, that doesn't seem right. And I was like, yeah, right. I was like, but it's okay. They give us title money with all kinds of strings attached to say, anyway. So resource equity, right? Making sure that the resources, time, money, people are placed where they are supposed to be placed. So that way those groups can actually make advancements, right? Like, is there any curiosity why brand new teachers or those teachers who are deemed, not fit to be in a classroom find their way into low income neighborhoods, right? And then we wonder why the outcomes are the way they are, right? So we got resource equity. And then the last portion is fair policies and systems. Right. And we talked a lot about this on that panel. I think Rabia mentioned like systems do what they're designed to do. And so to address those systems and those policies and say, wait a minute, are they negatively impacting the very groups of people that they're supposed to be protecting? Like, for example, like my kids ask me all the time, so why can't we wear hoodies in schools? I don't know. I love my hoodies. Right. And I'm like, the reality is there's, as we talked about earlier, there's a stigma associated with people who wear hoodies. Right. And so just talking about those conversations, are we kicking kids out because they're not in uniform, because they have the wrong socks? And then we're concerned about, their outcomes, right? How well they're doing in school. So it's really addressing those 4 domains and putting that together and saying, what does this look like in our schools? So that way we can move forward.
Absolutely. That's awesome. When I think about what you're both sharing in terms of really understanding our biases, becoming more aware of who we are, our own identities, and how that impacts how we see other people, just making sure that we have a solid framework for including everyone in these conversations and decision-making, right? What we're really doing is creating this culture of belonging in school organizations. And that's really what we should be striving for, right? And that takes everybody working together. And so, something that I really enjoy talking with folks about is the idea of intentional intentionally designed villages? How are we constructing the people, the groups of people that surround our students every day that give them access to all of the information, the support, the resources that they need to understand where they fit into this big puzzle, right? That is their life as they're existing in school, and acknowledging other people around them, fit in differently, but that we all have a place, and together we form this big, beautiful picture that we all need to be in, right? We all have a role. And if one of us is missing or one of us is out of place, right, it's just not right. And so how are we making decisions in school that help everybody to see where they fit into this big puzzle? What are the frameworks and structures that we have in place? What do our educators need to know and understand about bias, about racism, about equity, about inclusivity and belonging to help make those spaces exist, right? And so that's why Hedrick and Charles and I have really come together today to kind of bring these ideas to you and bring equity back to the forefront of the conversation again, because it is, it slipped a little bit, but we're here to support you with that. And so a couple of things that we have put together for you, first of all, is the Stronger Together Twitter community. And so I'm going to drop a link into the comments. It's going to give you some access and information to the Stronger Together Equity Network. So I'm going to pop that in to the comments for you so that you can access that. And it's streaming across the bottom there. It's an awesome community that we want you to join. It's an open community. Anybody can come in, and it's just going to be a space where you can share what's going on in your organization, in your environment with regard to DEI and all the work that you're doing. We want to see those success stories, like what's happening, what are you guys doing that's working, so that we can learn and grow together with you. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be really exciting. So I'll get that link in there for you. And then Charles, what else do we have for them? We've got something else for them.
Yeah, so we also have our Facebook page. So we want you to join there, right? The whole idea behind this, as we just said, is that this work is way too big for any one of us, right? When we talk about equity, it's such a large framework that no single one of us can do this work alone. And so we want to build this space where we can all come together and work together, grow together. I mean, we're doing a whole show on diverse learners next week. And I've mentioned, like, this is not something that I have a strength in, but I know there are those of you out there, I've connected with you, who that is your area, that is your powerhouse. So we want to connect with you. And more importantly, as we are doing this work, when an organization is out there and they're saying, hey, we need help, we need assistance, instead of going to that one person who's like, yeah, I'm really good at everything, they're not. Like, come to us and say, hey, look, you can talk to this person for this. You could talk to this person for that. And so I see all of you guys popping in. Carly, Alex, Ermelinda, thank you again for setting up that panel.
This is
Elizabeth.
Ermelinda, this
is you.
This is you.
Go, Irma. We love you.
So, yeah, please join the community on Twitter. Please join the page on Facebook. And we're just building this. We want to create that space where we could all come together. So thank you.
Yeah, so I'm go ahead, Hedrick. Go ahead.
I love that, Elizabeth. Joined and excited to empower together. I think that is such a wonderful thought. Just that's what we want to do. We want to empower teachers. We want to empower learners. We want to empower the community to be better, to build a better tomorrow.
Oh, yes, I love it. Building a better tomorrow, that we are. I dropped the link in there to the Facebook community in the chat that's streaming across the bottom there. If you just go to Facebook and search Stronger Together Equity Network, you can access the Facebook page. So be sure to check that out, join the Twitter community, and we will definitely be communicating with you, sharing information. I bet this won't be the last time you see us live.
No.
But we are really, really excited to have had you join us today. And we thank you so much for being here. We're going to post this out later. We'll share out some links. So if you didn't catch it the first time around, you'll be able to catch it the next time. But again, just, we've got a lot of work to do, a lot of messy work. But the really great thing is when you got people standing beside you and who are ready to do the work with you, it makes it a whole lot easier. And that's what we're here for. Be sure to reach out to any of us if you need any support. Be sure to join those communities, and we will see you back live soon. Have a great day, friends.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.